pronounced Sean.
Listen, I get a lot of weird pronunciations wrong in this world. In fact, I'm probably even saying that wrong. Probably pronunciation is more correct. Who knows? But I do it anyway, and it's kind of part of the fun. So welcome to my world. That's good to
Hey,
be
man.
both here.
Big fan. Glad to be here.
Well, great. We may as well dive in, and we do that every week with these headlines. Oh, I did it again with these headlines.
Herbert Hoover, Secretary of Commerce in 1922, finds infant radio facilitates news gathering, as do many others in high public office.
Tom Merritt, I am dying to know what happened in the last week.
Well, don't die, Scott, because we've got all the news you need right here. In fact, Legal Geek's going to cover this a little more, too. Twitter said it has stopped accepting submissions for verification of, the little blue check marks, and is introducing new guidelines for accounts to maintain verification. It's also begun a review, and under the new guidelines will remove verification from accounts that don't follow its rules or promote hate or violence, engage or incite in harassment, or intentionally mislead people by changing the name or the bio. Several accounts have had verification removed under these new protocols, and Twitter said it is also working on a new authentication and verification program altogether.
I'm worried that I'm going to get mine revoked, not because I'm doing any of the things that you listed there, but because it came to me out of the blue. I didn't apply for it. I don't know why I got it. It just happened. I'd kind of resigned myself to I'd probably never get verified, so who cares? It doesn't matter. I'm still talking to my peeps. Doesn't matter. But then suddenly one day, you're verified.
Yeah.
So I hope there's not some other clause that says, yeah, and those people we just randomly gave verification to because it seemed like they had enough followers or enough, whatever. We're taking them away too. We'll see.
Okay, you don't get on this side.
I think
Get on
the
the
weird
other
thing is,
side.
the whole point was to
Come on,
be able
Dick.
to tell the difference between a fake account and the actual legitimate account.
Wrong side.
And then
Get on
somewhere
this
along
side.
the way, it became like a status symbol, like an internet famous badge.
You
of
fucking
honor.
with my laptop,
So
and
that,
that's dumb.
I mean, I've never been we're verified on Facebook, which is weird because I didn't know they did that till Adam.
Well,
got
I
taken care
listen.
of.
That's only because I just applied
Huh?
for the thing, and it's like it's 2 seconds. They're like, "Hey, show us that you're not like a robot." And I was like, "All right, sure." And then they're like, "Hey, you got a blue check." I'm not gonna lie, it does feel like you feel like you're important there. But as far as Twitter goes, I've been on Twitter since just about the beginning of the whole darn thing. But for me, part of me, it's the punk rock in me, and punk rock and Groucho Marx that says I wouldn't want to belong to any club that would have me as a member. So
Yeah.
And the strange thing with me is I feel like I probably am the fake Bruce Leslie, so I wouldn't push the whole verification thing too hard. Like
Yeah.
there's a Bruce Leslie who's far more accomplished than I am, so I never paid too much attention to the blue check mark, but I guess it's, just wraps into this whole alt-right thing. More
Well,
than anything else
here's
from what I
the
understand.
other hitch for this for me, and Tom, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. But my feeling is, it did start out as a way of saying, who is the real version of this person and who is not the real version of that person. So if an actor who's very popular and has a bunch of parody accounts about them, it'd be nice to know which one was the real one, and that was the original idea. It just seems like they were so slow to do it for anybody else that didn't match up with, well, obviously Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson gets verified, and there's a lot of in between, and it took longer. It felt like a status thing. They started to build it up like almost like this elusive award that you would get for being cool somehow on Twitter. So I kind of feel like this is Twitter's fault.
It's definitely Twitter's fault.
Okay.
I think you're being very charitable in giving them benefit of the doubt that this started as just a way to verify people. When this kicked off, it was the Silicon Valley digerati who got it. The idea was, hey, we're mad that this person's pretending to be me and I'm a famous vlogger. And so they started giving verified checks to the people they knew around the Bay Area and elsewhere. Then, of course, as Twitter got more popular, they started giving it to celebrities. They started to give it they gave it as a status symbol from the beginning, and that's why it's perceived that way. Even though there is a very real need for it to work exactly like Facebook, which is, hey, I just want to prove that I'm this person and not a fake account. And that's all, in my opinion, that's all they should do. Just turn this thing into a black box, change the look of it so you break that perception and say, you're going to get a V, a really ugly V next to your name that says this is actually the real person, and it's not a badge of honor. It's just used to tell that, like, we went through some procedure, whatever that is.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that
one of those for a really long time, but it was not a badge of honor. It was not.
Sure, but here's the thing: like, if you if you have to do it for some, you have to do it for everybody, right? So if Twitter is expected to grow, I kind of get that it's a pain for them to have systems in place.
You know who's bigger than Twitter? Facebook. You know who does it exactly the way I described? Pretty much Facebook.
Yeah. But does Facebook make more money and therefore can justify the cost of verifying people? You know what I mean?
I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know that cost is a big deal.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I mean, I'm not trying to minimize the effort that has to go into it, but Twitter actually doesn't do badly on revenue side, and making money isn't what's the problem.
And also, okay, one final thing, and then we can move on. Isn't there some value in okay, so let's say some Nazi person gets on, and we're not going to get political on the show, but somebody gets on, he's a total Nazi
Even
head.
though you said the word Nazi.
Yeah,
but
and he's calling for all sorts of really controversial Nazi-type things. To me, Nazi isn't controversial. It's just straight up a thing. So,
right. It should not be controversial to be that Nazis are bad.
Right.
Let's
it shouldn't be. Somehow it is, but it shouldn't be. So let's say somebody does that. Am I actually served better knowing that that is a verified person being that
No,
Nazi?
absolutely.
Oh, he's
Totally with
sleeping.
Scott on this one. I mean, if
That's
somebody
comfy.
says, "Hey, let's kill all the Swedish people on Earth," I want to know who said that. I don't want somebody impersonating me saying that.
Scott and I particularly are going to have a problem.
Yeah, I don't. I'm Swedish descent with Tom, but B,
I tried
my
to pick
sister.
something non-controversial.
My sister lives in Sweden. I don't want her to get mistaken for an actual Swede. Also, I don't want Swedish people to die.
No,
I love Swedes, by the way. On the record, I love
The
Swedes.
Swedes. I don't know. They got to.
not an sweet show. IKEA is some of our favorite furniture.
That's right. That's right. Easy to
Big
assemble.
fan of Vikings over here.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm sure none of this is insulting to Swedes either.
Never.
No, but to your point, exactly. If somebody's out there, calling for something horrible, it would be good to know that it would be good. It's transparency to know who that person is and be
Right.
able to assign blame or credit or whatever to that person for saying.
Yeah, and I hope that that's where they're headed. So we'll see. Time will tell.
Amazon announced it has acquired the global TV rights to Lord of the Rings and intends to produce a multi-season TV series in cooperation with New Line Cinema, Tolkien Estate, and HarperCollins. So they're all going to team up on this. The series will explore storylines preceding the Fellowship of the Ring. So they're not going to cover what's been done in the movies. I guess The Hobbit precedes the Fellowship of the Ring, but I'm pretty sure that's not what they meant.
Silmarillion shit.
Also includes the rights to a possible spin-off series. That's just an option I bet they have in case this first series does well. 93-year-old Christopher Tolkien has been very adamant against these sorts of things. In fact, if the rights hadn't already belonged to Warner, I don't think he would have allowed the movies to be made by Peter Jackson. He, however, has retired from managing the Tolkien estate as of August 31st, hence this Amazon deal. What do you guys think?
Wow.
I think he's lazy, not getting up at 93 years old in the morning and just putting your nose to the grindstone. What a slob.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things I'd like to address. First off, like the time period. I've always been curious about the interim. When The Hobbit ends and when Lord of the Rings starts, there's a whole lot of Sauron building up some kind of mechanism for war. There's a whole lot of nefarious stuff that's going on in the background that hasn't been addressed. You go pre-Hobbit with the Silmarillion stuff.
man.
I'm not as interested in that. But I could really get into this interim thing. And I don't know how true it is, how much of it's rumor, but I've heard that we won't get Bilbo or Frodo in this series. So it's going to be kind of the political world of Middle-earth in the interim period when the decline of the Age of Heroes and the rise of the Age of Man is all going on. And I personally, I love fantasy. I'm all for it. I'll take bad fantasy over no fantasy. I mean, I like the Hobbit trilogy more than most folks.
Yeah, I'm going to side with you on this, Bruce, and I would say this. If clearly this is
Are you
Amazon
asleep?
saying,
Are you sleeping?
we got a bunch of money. HBO passed on this, I guess, is what I read somewhere. I wish I had that in front of me so I could verify it.
Netflix also.
Yeah, Netflix also, and you can see why in the case of HBO, they're already knee deep.
Sources say they didn't
sources say, sure, but they're so knee deep in Game of Thrones and everything else. The nice thing about Game of Thrones was when that hit, lots and lots and lots of people had no idea where it was coming from. It was a fresh new series, and they may have sensed some roots in other things, even Lord of the Rings for that matter. But it was never like, oh, finally this book that was a household name is making it to the small screen. I think most people. As a guess, but I think most people had no idea what the Lord of the Rings was, or what Game of Thrones was. In this case, you're talking about a household, many decades old property that we made into hit movies. We all know very well. Many of us remember the weird rotoscoped animation things from when we were kids. Like, we've read those books. Like, it's been part of our lives in such a meaningful way, and it's informed D&D and video games and everything else just to the hilt.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, I guess what I'm worried about is there's going to be a temptation on their part to make sure that there's some fan service in there, and I really don't. I hope they don't do that. What I want is a story that is about characters we don't know yet. You don't need a cameo from freaking Frodo or Bilbo for me to like it. Like, that's what I really hope they focus on. I don't want this to be just a parade of, remember this, remember this, remember this. That's where this guy came from. I mean, we think we like that, but I'm kind of done with that these days. I want some, like the new Star Wars trilogy and some of the other stuff that's coming up. I want those things to branch out and find new ground and tell, if not brand new stories, at least stories that they haven't been telling in that universe. So that's where my hopes lie.
I think a Lord of the Rings Rogue One could be great, man. As long as they don't focus on Mary, I'll be okay with it. But and also the thing I think about this, you know, I'm a huge fan of all the fantasy stuff. I love Game of Thrones. I love the books. I love the TV show, but I can't watch this TV show with my kids. But Lord of the Rings, I think, is something I could share with my kids, and we could watch it, you know, on Sunday night or something. And I really think it'd be a good thing for a whole lot of folks out there. And if you don't like it, you don't watch it. It's that simple. Amazon's got the money to burn, and if they want to do it, I'm going to support it at least initially and give it a chance.
Yeah, Adam, what's your take?
I don't think there's any middle ground to this at all. This
Middle
thing is
Earth, but no middle ground.
Nice.
But there's no way. It's either going to be ridiculously good and everyone's going to love it, or it's going to be absolute dog trash. It can't, there's going to be nowhere in the middle. It's just, I don't see, it's either going to go like prequel level and we all just want to burn it to the ground, or the original, you know, Lord of the Rings trilogy, man. So it's a gamble, but hopefully it's a gamble that'll actually pay off.
Yeah, it's a gamble. It's a $250 million gamble. But I guess all I'm saying is, with a world where we have a million things and we're getting the comic book movies we all thought we wanted, and we're getting Star Wars again, and announcements of that coming back to TV. Star Trek just returned to TV. Like, all of this stuff, so much competition for our allegiances to specific series. And I just hope that they can do this in a way that is new enough and fresh enough, but also makes me go, oh yeah, it's Lord of the Rings. It's venerable. It'll never go away. Because we got bombarded with Lord of the Rings in the aughts, like just slammed with Lord of the Rings constantly.
You know, you talking made me think what they could do that would be very successful is focus on the first war. Focus on Sauron after he's given the rings to the Nine Kings, and the lead up to that war. That would be huge. It's something we've seen glimpses of in the movies, granted, but there's so many characters that give you fan service because, hey, that's the Steward of Gondor's dad, or, you know, that's or not dad, I guess, but, you know, that's his ancestor, and Aragorn's ancestor, and that would be cool because you'd be seeing them, but they would also still be new characters and a very compelling story.
Could be, but are you worried that, like, some of the elves are still alive, right? So some of those guys...
Yeah, that's fine. Show me Galadriel. Show me Legolas. That's cool, actually, because the elves and men team up in this, and it's going to be an entirely different dynamic. This is where the elves fall out of love with the world of men. That's going to be fun to watch too.
But if it's not Cate Blanchett and it's not Orlando Bloom, does that throw you at all?
No, Bloom is free. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was about to say that I am totally open to recasting, new casting. We understand this is a different franchise, a different medium. I think you got to recast it because I don't necessarily know that I want to see Orlando Bloom playing himself as 300 years younger.
Yeah,
Listen, man, the guy's got to pay his mortgage. Just let him do what the role he can do, for heaven's sake.
Sure. I'm worried about prequels.
I'm a young Orlando Bloom.
The prequel thing is always a little precarious though too, because you know the outcome. So the story you need to tell needs to kind of have its own beginning and ending anyway, and not just lead up to a thing you already know the answer to.
Well, that's why the war works for me, because even though you know it's coming, you know, the lead up to it is very compelling. How did that actually happen? How did the Nine Kings really get tempted away? Were they good? Were they bad? There's a lot of questions there to be explored.
Hadn't thought about that. That's actually pretty good. Yeah.
In all fairness, any adaptation, we know where it ends up.
So, well, that's true.
I knew how Lord of the Rings was going to end.
That's true, but like Game of Thrones, well, actually, Game of Thrones is unique in this one way. You may have known how each book was going to end, but you don't know where the series is going to end because they're already in new territory that the books don't cover. So, like, HBO got lucky across the board in lots of ways, I think. This is just so much expectation. People who like the Peter Jackson treatment are going to expect that. If they don't get that, you know, what does that mean? It's also a streaming service only. It's a good one, but it's, you know, this isn't necessarily HBO. You don't have quite the eyeballs. I don't know. I'm really curious about it. Bring it on. Let's watch it. We'll judge it based on its merits, even its Tom merits.
All right. So this week, Rotten Tomatoes took a lot of flack for delaying the release of the tomato meter score for Justice League because they want to reveal it on a new show called See It, Skip It, which is from the video department at Rotten Tomatoes, which is run by my wife. So just full disclosure right there.
Best idea ever.
I had a lot of discussions around the house about this one. But if you want to know the facts of what happened, not me telling you what to think about what happened, essentially, the NDA for Justice League released on Wednesday morning. Normally what happens is, as soon as everybody publishes their reviews, the Rotten Tomatoes folks go and they count up all the reviews and assign them a fresh or a rotten score, and then they publish their score sometime Wednesday morning. They announced that they wouldn't be publishing it sometime Wednesday morning. They'd be publishing it at midnight Wednesday or Thursday morning on See It, Skip It, because that's their new Facebook show. And of course, Facebook loves that, you know, push people to watch the show, more streams. That's great. People talked about it as if they were delaying it for days. They delayed it probably at most a half a day, maybe a full day, depending on how you look at it. But it did come out 9 p.m. Pacific on the show. So there's what happened.
All right, that's good. No, that was a very non-biased retelling of the tale. I appreciate that. I will say this, though.
See It, Skip It is a great show, and Robin and Shagun are awesome.
It really is. I think
Jacqueline and Shagun.
There you go. See,
I don't know who Robin is.
This is how unbiased you are. You're just throwing people in that don't exist, and I totally trust this. 39% currently, by the way, on Rotten Tomatoes. Not looking great for this new installment of the DC universe. But regardless of all of that, it is interesting what people's expectations of a website can become, and if you break with tradition, by that meaning, you know, scores are going up after, even if it's only a few hours after what they would normally do. Man, if I've learned anything on the internet, is none of these people like change. And,
and I think one thing that's real important to get out there is this wasn't a Warner Brothers embargo, because that's how the news was received. You know, we have our own group of folks that are all about these kind of movies, and it was perceived as a Warner Brothers embargo. But those individual reviews were out there. I read a review from Variety, one from Rolling Stone. I mean, the reviews were out there. This was a decision internally from Rotten Tomatoes, and they can do whatever they want.
But there is an embargo on the reviews from DC for Wednesday morning at 2 a.m.
Right.
The Rotten Tomatoes delay was, okay, as soon as that embargo lifts, we're not going to publish that tomato meter in the normal few hours that we would take to assemble all of those review scores. It was, we're going to reveal it that night on See It.
Which is their prerogative. Like, it's their website. I could never get mad at this. Now, I might, as a user, go, well, it'd be great if I could see it earlier or whatever before I go see this thing or whatever. But it's not like Rotten Tomatoes has some law they're following here and they broke it on this one. Yeah. It's just them getting to do what they want with the website. It's hard for me to get behind everybody who wants to make a mountain out of a molehill.
But
here.
Amongst the DC fans, which there are a few out there, the Warner Brothers DC movies fans, there are a few out there, and going all the way back to BVS, there's sort of been this kind of tinfoil hat type conspiracy that Rotten Tomatoes is all in with Disney Marvel and all against Warner Brothers DC, and choosing this movie to hold it off could be kind of misinterpreted by some folks. And, you know, there's always the question of where do those sort of middle-of-the-road reviews, when do they get counted as positive, when do they get counted as negative? So there's a lot of conspiracy stuff specifically about the DC Warner Brothers stuff in Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe they would have debuted with Thor Ragnarok. This wouldn't have happened.
Well,
they did debut with Thor Ragnarok, but they couldn't delay the Thor Ragnarok score for the show because that score was NDA lifted way too early.
Yeah, because they also premiered in Europe and stuff like a week.
Also, yeah, and it was like I don't remember exactly the day, but it was something like the NDA lifts on Friday. We're not going to hold it all the way to the next Thursday.
Right. I can totally understand.
But with the NDA lifting on Wednesday morning, they thought, well, that's close enough.
Yeah.
Maybe Daddy's Home 2 would have been a good place to start.
Maybe.
That's precisely what I was about to bring
Daddy's
up.
Home 2 was one of the tomato meters they revealed on a previous episode.
Maybe your wife should hire me. I've got all these great ideas.
Right? You're nailing it here.
You either did it too early or too late. I think like when this finally hits the big prominence, it is of this movie that has had within the pantheon of all the DC movies and stuff, have had some fairly, to some people, very controversial scores to go along with them. And so it feels like they're hiding. They may not be, but it feels to people like, oh, what are you trying to hide from me here? What's going on?
Yeah, but they're not. See, if you guys are telling me the internet's full of conspiracy theories, gosh, I just don't know what to do with that information. But secondly,
we should point out because we haven't stated it clearly here, and I know you were hitting around about it. Warner Brothers is a minority owner in Fandango. Fandango is the company that owns Rotten Tomatoes. And NBC is the majority owner, NBC Universal. So there were conspiracy theories there. Let me tell you, the majority owner runs the show in these situations.
Yeah, they get to make the calls. But also, this is an aggregate site. The whole point of its existence, its rise to popularity, is all about taking the reviews and making a little score for us doughheads that don't want to read through it.
And if I can just say, Tom, that sometimes the conspiracy theorist comes back to Time Warner versus Comcast, where you can see how that all plays.
Which is not Warner Brothers. Time Warner is an entirely different company.
And yet again, conspiracy theorists don't worry because the word Warner is in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that simple for them.
I'm not by any way endorsing this.
No, I get it.
Oswald works at NBC Universal. This is all what we're saying.
Yeah.
Did you know on the Warner lot they have a grassy knoll? I'm just saying.
Oswald belongs to ABC. They traded Michaels for him. What's that guy's name? The sports announcer? They traded.
Yeah, he's
Al Michaels. That's right.
Al Michaels was the big get.
So
you ever notice Al Michaels sounds like Kermit the Frog? Next time you see it, just listen for it. He sounds exactly like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, they've never been seen together. Where's his hand? I've seen his hand, and that all sounds like I'm going in a real dark place. Never mind, I'm backing it up.
I've got my Gatorade. I'm ready.
So here's what I think, and this is what I told my wife. The problem is you never take away things from people on the internet. And if you wanted to premiere the score on the show, you move the show. You don't move because the show didn't have a big enough following that people were like, wait a minute, I'm getting it early. But even if it did, getting it early is a good thing, right? So that's what I would have done in that situation. But there's a million reasons why maybe that wouldn't work.
Sure, but and then there's a next time this comes up, maybe that's different. And they handle it differently. But again, an aggregate site, all of those reviews that had added up eventually 6 to 12 hours later or whatever it was, existed on the internet already and in newspapers and everywhere else. They always exist. This aggregates them. So it's not like this is the pipe connected to the water system. The water is everywhere. They just put it in a bucket and count it, and that's it.
Don't ask me.
And Rotten Tomatoes did absolutely nothing in terms of changing the movie. So you either liked it or you didn't. It's not their fault.
Right.
All right, let's move from one hot tomato to a Battlefront. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had some downloadable content you could unlock with in-game credits. You could either get the in-game credits by playing the game, or by a somewhat tortured route of buying crystals to buy loot boxes to get star cards that you could then turn into credits.
Yeah.
EA has made another change to the Battlefront 2 game. The first change was they reduced the amount of time it took to get the credits you need to buy the in-game characters by playing the game. Now, they've just gotten rid of the ability to buy the crystals temporarily. They didn't say they're getting rid of it forever, but they're like, fine, when it launches today, you just get things by playing. That's all you get. People didn't like it to the point that an EA post about it on Reddit became the most downvoted comment in Reddit history.
By a huge amount. It was like 300 something thousand. Yeah. Or by the end it was like 600. And the highest previous to that was 24,000 was all. And it had nothing to do with this. But let me just say this real quick. This is deeper than just loot boxes and it being as simple as it's pay to win. The game itself, and none of the fixes they've released are making it so it costs less or costs nothing money-wise, but costs less in terms of time. None of that addresses the core issue, which is the in-game progression system that they built, clearly to maximize profit, which is what you do as a game company. I don't fault them for trying to figure out a way to make money on the back end of these things. Games as services are the hot new thing, and many have figured it out. EA is trying to find their way. Where I fault them is it's terrible. Their plan was bad, and the game is left with a whole bunch of systems internally that even if they never charge for a single thing outside the game, it's arduous, it's clumsy, it makes the process of playing, especially the multiplayer stuff, feel real goofy and weird, and that's my problem with it.
It's arduous, it's clumsy, it's EA.
Yeah, it's EA a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It's a bum. The whole thing's a bummer for sure because Star Wars fans just want what they want. And also, by the way, their stock is up today. So what I actually think is going on, that's not them. That's not the stock market reacting to these announcements. I think that most Star Wars fans who buy 1 or 2 video games a year, they might get Madden and whatever has Star Wars on it, are buying this and not even knowing about any of this controversy. They're just going to buy the cool new Star Wars game.
Plenty of them that know about the controversy, downvoted the comment, and are mad, are still buying the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of mud to sling in a lot of directions, but I think EA misstepped the crap out of this, and it's a full-blown PR
my other wife
nightmare.
works for EA. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's NBC Universal did it.
Not involved.
Oh,
Not involved.
okay, great. Well, anyway, thoughts, you guys? Like, I mean, the whole loot box thing has been controversial for a while. This is just the most recent and perhaps biggest example of how that thing can really foobar out of control.
These things happen all the time, but it's not like it's anything new, especially with a company like EA, who has consistently screwed up things and really not known how stuff works. Whether it's just easy signing into like, oh, I'd like to play this game, please join our crappy little service that you can't get away from or whatever. And it's one thing on top of another, and it's just I think people are finally just sick of EA's crap, man. They just are like, look, dude, just give us our stuff. Do like everybody else and do like a season pass or some sort of garbage like that. I understand they're doing what they're doing to make the the amount of money that they do. Fine, charge me $40 for the game.
Yeah. Also, there's this thing in the industry where mobile has started to creep into mainstream. Mobile being the place where you buy a lot of gems and you have 5 different currencies and half the time.
The whole freemium idea.
Yeah, and it's not that these things can't be implemented well. Games under Blizzard Activision tend to handle these a little bit better, especially on the Blizzard side. You have, and I'm very biased because I love Blizzard, but when you buy loot boxes in Overwatch, in addition to the $39 base game that you bought, all you're buying is for quick access to more loot boxes, and they're all cosmetic. They don't actually change any of the skill caps or anything in the game. It doesn't make you a better player. It just makes you look different. And I think that's a good medium. People seem to be happy there. I've never had a problem with it. But when they start bringing in, like, buy gems to buy this, then to buy that, and it gets really convoluted and kind of just anti-consumer for a thing you've already spent $60 on. Then the argument comes back, well, games have been $60 for a long time. It's not keeping up with inflation. We can't make AAA titles for $60 a piece anymore at the sales levels we're at. That's the big complaint of the industry. And they're right. It hasn't moved that way. It's weird. Consumers of video games do not expect big price hikes in their products the way it happens with gas or food or any other thing with a sort of incremental inflation over time. So that plays into this in a big way, and they're trying to figure out ways to do it on the back end. Like I say, companies like Blizzard have figured it out. EA is overreaching here, and what this probably means in the long run is that we'll suss it out and find a place that works eventually. But they way overstepped, and they're paying for it now. Or maybe they're not paying for it at all because, like I said, Star Wars is so mainstream, it may not even matter to the bottom line. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably does. I mean, you can't spell hate without EA, but they're still in business.
Yeah, thanks to enough sports games, they'll be around.
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. It goes all the way back to like the 2K series and stuff like that, where they dropped 2K5 for $20. It sold more than just about any football game that was out at the time. And then EA just goes, well, we can't have any of that, and then made sure that they had the NFL license until the end of time.
Yeah.
So they've been known to do shady kind of stuff like this all the time, where it's just like
City and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, SimCity was a nightmare. They own so many things I love and want to play, but they dink with it in a way. Like BioWare used to be one of the greatest companies ever. EA bought them. I don't know what BioWare is now. They're not what they used to be, I can tell you that. Like, yeah, it's kind of the everything you touch dies kind of thing with them. And I don't know. Like, it's easy to get cartoony about them being that. I think that they can turn that around. I think that they can live on more than just their FIFA money. But this is not the way, man. And people are...
They don't care, though. I mean, they've shown that. Like, I mean... I guess changing the game mechanics before launch day shows that they're paying attention. They care that much. But they keep doing stuff like this. People keep hating them. They keep bouncing back. They sell games.
Yeah.
Like I would not expect it to change.
And the only other thing I would say is on the there is a small army of developers, coders, artists, animators across the board at that company making games like this with incredible finesse and art and everything else. And I feel bad because they've made a thing they're proud of, but the business model is interfering with that. And secondly, what usually happens after something like this and after it launches, a bunch of those people get laid off. That's the other thing this industry is really bad at, and EA is not helping. So anyway, I hope that this PR nightmare doesn't contribute more to the job loss stuff that sometimes happens in these cycles regardless.
Though that happens, that is usually not connected to the PR cycle.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Director George Miller is suing Warner Brothers over over unpaid earnings related to Mad Max Fury Road. The suit claims that Miller's production company, which is called Kennedy Miller Mitchell, was to receive a $78 million bonus if the final net cost of the movie was less than $157 million. Miller claims that Warner made a bunch of decisions that caused changes and delays, and only the costs associated with Warner's changes caused them to go over the $157 million and shouldn't be taken into account.
Give Miller what he wants. Give him what he wants. He's the most important director of our time. I need a second Mad Max Fury Road
George
movie.
Miller is furioso over this.
That's why they quit kicking his name around for Justice League, I guess, was this whole lawsuit.
Yeah.
But I do want to say his production company sounds like somebody that I would hire to like represent me in my personal injury lawsuit or something. It doesn't sound like your
Kennedy
typical-
Miller Mitchell
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Here's the thing.
man,
This kind of stuff happens all the time. Now, to get like a really nice history of it, read Down and Dirty Pictures. It's all about the independent film scene in the 90s and whatnot, and how especially companies like Miramax, they were probably the most egregious of this, of hiding, kind of going, hey, things didn't clear up all the way, or like we didn't reach this certain sort of thing, and really just screwing their filmmakers and stuff out of the money that was actually due them. So it doesn't usually happen for bigger companies like this because they tend to be a little bit more open with the books and whatnot. But it's not unheard of.
Yeah, but moreover, this is the best. We're talking about Mad Max Fury Road, the best movie of the last 10 years, maybe more.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yes. Multiple thousands of times, it feels like, although it's probably more like dozens. But I love this movie. Big shock. I love this movie more than any movie I've seen in a decade. And it's everything. It was like it was made for me and handed to me specifically. The news that a sequel was coming excited me beyond belief. And now I'm bummed because if they can't work this out, there's no way there's another movie. Not with him at the helm. Like, they could pull a total, like, well, we control the IP, so let's bring in, Brett Ratner or some a-hole.
Not anymore.
nobody listens to me, but I always say your contracts need to be all about the gross. All contracts need to be about the gross and not anything else because, according to Hollywood accounting, Return of the Jedi lost money. Harry Potter movies have all lost money. You can't do anything with net. You just got to get points of the gross.
Yeah. Well, one way or the other, please make this George Miller, and you're still my favorite director currently working. I'm sure that'll help.
Hey, pick in the city, boy.
Whatever it takes. I want to thank so many who've helped submit stories for today. Tom, who contributed today to our story pool?
Yeah, currentgeek.reddit.com is the place we find out about all the stuff that we want to talk about on the show. Captain Kipper, T-Glass 1976, Jeff Rose, Strike It Rich 1, Kitus, Fritz Krieg, and more.
Very
all
nice.
submitted things that we used on today's show and voted on things, and you can be like them. Just go to currentgeek.reddit.com.
I would recommend it. Okay, we'd like to give a second to our guests to talk about the projects they're working on right now. Does not matter which of you takes this. Which would you like to talk about? What's going on? What's happening with your podcast, and what isn't? And, why should I listen?
First.
Yeah, Adam,
All
go
right,
first,
well,
sure.
all right. So I've got a lot of stuff, as does Bruce. We do a ton of things, but yet we don't have a ton of people. So get on board, everybody. But first and foremost is Hero Movie Podcast. This weekend, of course, is going to be the new Justice League. So I'm sure everyone wants to get on that, and we'll be reviewing that. Drops on Monday, and we review all kinds of superhero films, from the old stuff to and I mean old stuff, like serial type stuff, all the way to the new stuff. And Bruce has pretty much like a comic book encyclopedia inside of in his big giant brain and can relate that back to comics and stuff like that. It's a heck of a lot of fun. So it's smart, but yet really, it can be a little irreverent, but not too bad.
That's
but it's
cool.
nice and family friendly.
Have you guys done? Have you guys talked about the 1949 Batman serial that was eventually like a full blown movie? Because that thing is the worst and best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, we haven't seen it. I did do like a live screening of that on another show. Let's talk about that one. What a heck of a segue there.
There you go.
Over at nerdtalknow.com on usually Mondays, but sometimes it's been going over to Tuesdays just because of prior engagements and everything. I do a live show that just brings you right over to Twitch. It's somewhat similar to this. You got your chat room and all that kind of jazz, and we do some nerd talk about this, that, and the other. And, of course, the Film Find at thefilmfind.com. Therefore, on that one, what we do is just new releases every single week, usually 3 to 4 of them. And we talk about old stuff, new stuff. But if there's a movie that's coming out in the theaters, chances are we see it.
Bruce, sounds like you guys are movie fans.
It's true, man. And I've also, I like to write a little bit. I know, Tom, you've written a few books, right?
I have.
Yeah,
I
so
have indeed.
like in the whole world of speculative fiction, I lean a little more towards the fantasy, but I've written a few books. The most recent one is called Nerd Spawn Genesis, and it's actually about the personalities on our podcast entering into a totally true fictional world. It's pretty much just your standard story about 3 podcasters fighting against evil podcasters, and a teenage demonologist gets involved. We find out we all 3 have a 12-year-old son with superpowers. Pretty standard stuff about protecting oatmeal, fighting evil teamsters, animatronic rats versus nerds. Kind of a literary staple at this point.
Just the tropes, the normal tropes.
Yeah, I'm all about writing to market, if you're familiar with that. Everybody wants that animatronic rat market.
Right. How
their
many
superhero
oatmeal
story.
novels do I have to read?
Yeah, that's amazing. That sounds great. What's the name of the book again?
Nerd Spawn Genesis, and it's the only Nerd Spawn. It's one word. It's the only Nerd Spawn on Amazon until I get tons of imitators.
Well, very nice. Yeah, no, you're going to star all the new trends.
Fun/fic starts to show up.
Yeah, it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. Well, that's awesome. We will, of course, at the end of the show, give links and all this sort of stuff to help people be driven in the right direction and know where to find it all. But now it's time for this.
America scores and wins.
Man, where's the music? There we go. Hey, everybody, it's time for us to play a little bit of a game, that game being a pop quiz game. Areas of your expertise have been compiled into a set of questions for each of you. When you get an answer right to one of these questions, you'll hear this sound. And when you get it wrong, you'll hear this. The entire time we do this, Tom will be keeping score by his own rule book with all
Not
of its...
not mine.
Oh,
It's an ancient rule book.
Ancient rule
Scott.
book. Okay, it's like he's like, what are you? You're like the keeper of the flame for an ancient ritual since time ad memoriam.
This is just the first couple volumes right here.
Oh wow. He even okay. I just like to make a comment here. If I could mention anything like from our childhood or whatever, and Tom somehow has it within reaching distance of his standing desk, he also has a giant prop book to talk about his rules. That is over the top, whole new level stuff. Anyway, so here we go. We're gonna start with let's start with Adam. Adam, are you ready for your category, sir?
I am ready.
All right. I wish I was. Hold on 1 second. That would be the real trick here.
An automatic win. There you go.
For
Good
some reason, because I never opened them. I thought maybe they crashed. Okay, here we go. Adam, your questions are all about the 1960s Batman television show.
Oh boy.
All right.
Bam!
Adam West, the other guy. Who's
The other guy.
Who's the other guy? I forgot his name.
Burt Ward.
Burt Ward. Okay. Those guys. So that's what you're going to deal with here. Mustache on the Joker and all that. So here we go. First question: who played the villain Egghead in this show?
I can say, was that one of Vincent Price's roles?
You are correct, sir. Well done.
Digging them deep.
It is
You
literally.
lose a 1/10 of a point for answering a question with a question.
He thought it was Jeopardy in his defense.
Fair.
Really?
It's fair.
We're
That looks a lot like Pat Sajak. We all know that.
Sure. Why not? Wait, Pat Sajak. That's the wrong guy for
It's a
Jeopardy.
good defense measure, though, because if you're wrong, then you could say, no, I was asking.
Yeah.
That's not my answer.
Pat Sajak is the Wheel of Fortune guy.
He's a
What-
Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah,
I'm-
it's
you know,
all
we've
right.
had-
It's totally fine.
had a few decisions.
Alex
who-
Trebek.
Oh yeah, Alex Trebek. Duh. Here's the next one. How many episodes were made of the 1960s Batman show? I actually
I
knew
believe
this.
it was, I think, 123.
Let's find out. Oh, you're so close. 120 is the answer.
No, he gets
Shut
9
up,
tenths of a
Jake.
point for that, for being so close.
Yeah, I don't know if they count. They don't count the movie in that. I don't think the 2-hour like all the world leaders are turned into a pile of salt deal. Yeah, those are great, by the way. All right, what model of car was used for the Batmobile in this series?
Oh boy. Wouldn't it be great if it were a Corvair? I'm going Corvair.
Well, let's find out. Nope, it was a 1955 Lincoln Futura. Never even heard of that car, but that was it. Second to last.
In Futura.
That's right. Futura Rama. Who played Batgirl in the show's 3rd season?
Oh boy, the different.
Yeah, they changed them around a lot.
We're gonna say Dorothy Hamill.
You are incorrect. Shockingly enough, incorrect about not being Dorothy Hamill. It was Yvonne Craig.
No.
You get 5 tenths of a point for creating a new childhood fantasy for many of us.
Or at least for Tom. All right, final question. What was the filming location for the entrance to the Batcave?
Carlsbad Cabin or something?
You are incorrect. It was the Bronson Caves. It's also been used in lots of other shows, including Star Trek and Twin Peaks.
Does it count that my dog's name is Bronson?
No.
Yes, 1 tenth of a point.
Sorry, I forget.
Named Bronson.
Tom's got that giant book. He knows the rules. I shouldn't try to pipe in on those. All right, you did really well, but I believe Bruce may turn the tables here. Bruce, are you ready for your questions?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Your whoops. Why is that doing that? All right, your category is 1960s Marvel animated television shows.
Ooh, good.
All right. I used to love these. I've only ever seen them on YouTube.
Well,
I didn't even see them when I was a kid, but I love them.
Oh, stupid.
Anyway, how many episodes were made for the Marvel superhero series?
17.
You are incorrect. It says 65 here.
I was
That's
only
like not
off
even-
by a few.
Yeah.
So you get a tenth of a point.
How many character segments were there in the Marvel superhero series? Each segment, by the way, focused on a particular character. So how many segments were there in the series?
3.
Let's see. 3 is incorrect. The answer is Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, Invincible Iron Man, the Mighty Thor, and Prince Namor, the Submariner. That made 5. 5 total. Your next question.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Your next question is
I
who
agree with the facts that were stated before me. Okay.
who provided the voice of Spider-Man in the 1960s series?
Oh, that would have been Estes Kefauver.
You are incorrect. It was Paul Soules.
I was
No, but you get 8 tenths of a point for an Estes Kefauver reference. That never comes right.
It's also really fast with it. He also played the fantastic Fakir, Ox, and Vulture. I don't know who the fantastic Fakir is.
We also would have accepted Adlai Stevenson.
Oh, very nice. I've always accepted him. All right, your next or second to the last question. What channel did the Spider-Man cartoon originally air on?
We're talking about the Filmation, the old one.
Correct. The original, like old school. It was still 60s, but yeah.
I've got a 33% chance, so I'm going to say Fox.
You are incorrect, but I take the good. That was really
I have a
good.
33% chance, so let me make it 0.
Yeah. ABC is the correct answer. Final question. I'm going to sneeze. Final question. Here it comes. I have a
Okay, you get a point for having to listen to that.
Yeah, I have a button for that too. What was that? I should have pushed that. All right. Who composed the iconic Spider-Man theme song? No, that's Batman.
From the Electric Company?
Spider-Man. That one.
Coming from
Yeah.
Spider-Man. Nobody
Knows who you are. No, that's
Electric
not the
Company.
one. That's the. That's
It's
the
a different one?
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man. It was either the Ramones or They Might Be Giants.
Well, let's find out if that's correct. I have an idea, but let's see. Yeah, Paul Francis Webster and Robert Harris.
That's They Might Be
The
Giants.
original
That's the real
member
names.
of They Might Be the Ramones.
They might be the Ramones. I'd listen to that, man. All right, you've both done well, but one of you did better than the other.
You've both done the quiz.
You've both done the quiz. Congratulations. But Tom, you scored all up at the end. Things have gone a different way before. How did they do today?
Oh, no, we ended up with a very close race here. Bruce tallied up 1.9 points to Adam's 2.4.
Wow, look at that.
Congratulations.
High scores, guys, one and all. Well done. That's our game. Now it's
God.
forecast.
The future promises even more startling things to come.
Oh, he's sleeping.
This is where we predict the future. It used to
Look
be a
at
show.
his
Now it's a
head.
segment, and we talk about
Look at that head. That's your
far-flung,
tooth.
near future. It doesn't matter really, and it doesn't even matter what category.
That's your little man.
Adam has submitted this one, and I'll read it, and I want you to explain. It says, in the future, going to the movie theater will be the equivalent of attending a play in 2017. I actually think I, even on the surface of this, kind of agree, but let's dig a little deeper. Why do you think that's the case?
This seems to be the way that we're trending more and more. I mean, take a look at, for example, Netflix. Netflix now is putting so much money into their programming, and here's the thing. They're not bad stuff. You got everything from the Gerald's Game to the big stuff that's coming out with Will Smith and futuristic, whatever the heck it's called. No one's going to really watch it, but whatever. Here's the thing. We're making bigger and better things all the time. You've got Disney going off. They're doing their own streaming service and not too awful long. The theater experience, as somebody who goes to the theater easily, last year I saw 150 movies in the theater, just to give you an idea of how often I go.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. People are going less and less and less. And people are, and TVs at home are getting just better and better and better. We are going to get to the point where movies in the future, I'm going to say maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 years in the future, will be like, it'll be like going to a play. You're going to go there. It's going to be opulent. You're going to have really nice stuff. It's going to be above and beyond. People might get dressed up. You don't know. But it's gonna cost a premium price, and that's when you're gonna go out and do that. You're still gonna have that. That's gonna be an option for you to do. But by and large, most of your movie watching will be from home. I mean, we have, heck, I got, a sound system that's, I could say, rivals most of the, at least audio quality wise, most of what I hear in the theaters and stuff like that. So many of us have 4K TVs and things like that. Projectors are super cheap these days. I just don't see us going to the theater nearly as much as we already are trending down towards. I don't see that happening more and more in the future. I see much less of it.
So this has come up before on the show with other guests and Tom and I about the experience becoming more of a boutique experience. Things like the Alamo Draft House sort of leading the way in this regard, making it more of a specialized experience, whether that's the kinds of things and services you get there or just the fact that it becomes more antiquated, like vinyl disc collection. People are still buying records today in quote-unquote record numbers.
Good Lord.
If you compare it to when it had its first big drop-off after tapes happened. So why not movies? Anyone disagree with this assessment? I think I agree with it. I think the future of that is going to be special dates and stuff.
The whole
like that.
boutique thing is the answer, man. A lot of theaters nationwide, even in little towns like where I live now, once a week they'll have something like Ghostbusters or Back to the Future, Home Alone around the holidays. I think the first Harry Potter movie is getting shown, and there's stuff like that on the big screen will pull me in. And I think it's going to go more and more kind of like that hipster direction, like you said, like vinyl and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but here's the problem, though, right? Like, right now, that entire industry depends on big, giant, loud superhero movies like the kinds you guys cover on your show.
Yeah, and those are still going to be, events. When we say it's going to be like theater, Hamilton does great box office. So there's still going to be stuff that does great box office, but it's going to be more of an event. I think the ticket prices may go up a little bit. The number of weeks that those big things are showing may reduce a little bit, but it's still going to be kind of an event. It might even get to the point where they want to limit the supply to the point that things are intentionally sold out to have like this artificial demand for it and drive up the prices a little bit.
That's where you'll go for your blockbusters and things of that measure. But like your more independents, your more kind of smaller budgeted things, things that are less than $40 million, those will go directly to streaming of some sort.
I feel like we're already there.
Don't forget, right now, ticket prices for movie theaters are super cheap. Granted, not relatively speaking, right? When you think back, like, I used to pay like $2.50 to see a movie, or I used to pay $7 to see a movie. This is ridiculous. It's $20 now. But compare it to Hamilton. That's $100 base.
No, that's like $3.50 for a bad seat, man.
Compare it to any music concert that you want to go to. Like, that's movie theater prices will go up. I don't even think they'll go that far up, but they will go up to make up the difference, and they will be events. Just the fact that we still have opera. Right? Yeah. Plays didn't kill opera. Movies didn't kill opera. TV didn't kill opera. There's still opera. There's still enough people that like it. It's in fewer places, but it's still there. Movies aren't going away.
Yeah.
But
But
I think this prediction is dead on.
In all fairness, I only see like 7-8 operas a year now compared to when I was growing up.
Not as many as we used to, right?
I love being around the idea of around the opera offices. They're all just going, you heard about this new thing called television? We are screwed, guys.
Yeah, I think this is we're
I think
already.
at opera, they're like this new thing called Shakespeare. They don't even sing.
Yeah.
Well,
That
Have you
about
heard of auto-tune?
It's too good. Well, there you go. I think it's a fine prediction and one that will come true. Before we go today, we'd like to do an email at the end of the show. Got one here from pal of mine. I don't know his real name. I assume that's a name.
No, I think it's Palofmine.
Oh, Palofmine.
It's Italian.
All right.
Sweet.
Probably loves the opera.
He says, this came to us at currentgeek@gmail.com. He says, hey guys, here's hoping that there are 0 Jedis in the new Star Wars trilogy. Who's with me? I think I'm with him. I want something new from this new Rian Johnson helmed trilogy that was announced, but we know nothing else about.
What they'll do is they'll give us something that's not called a Jedi, but it's a Jedi.
Maybe.
They'll call it I don't know, a John Doe warrior, but it'll still be a Jedi.
Because you had your stuff from the other one. What's the other one called? Shoot. The Rogue One. Rogue One had your guy that was like a failed Jedi kind of, the blind dude.
Yeah.
No, he was a part of the Jedi religion. He just wasn't a trained Jedi.
Sure.
Here's what we talked about on Let's Talk About Star Wars this week with Garrett and Jenny. We think they're probably going to the unknown regions, which they've been hinting at constantly in the books and in the comics. And that's where Thrawn's people come from. There's no Jedi over there.
Yeah.
So unless they do something, unless his series goes back to the origins of the Jedi, perhaps, like really far in the past, I have a feeling Palofmine is going to get their wish.
Yeah, probably.
one rule.
Yeah.
One rule, no Skywalkers. Other than that, just bring it on. I mean, I love the Skywalkers, get it all good. But here's the thing, we've had our time, 9 movies. Let's wrap this bad boy up, send it off to school. It's done graduated. Give us
100.
everything outside of Skywalker stuff, and I'm on board.
Yeah.
I just like to catch up with that Harvey Korman character with 6 arms that cooks a lot.
Yeah. The rump, the one about the bantha rump. Wasn't that who that was?
Yeah, like spin, spin, swish or something like that.
I have a clip right here. Here you go.
I would suggest then that old popular holiday favorite, the Bantha Rump.
Yeah. Remember? And that was him, wasn't it? That was who you said? Harvey Korman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, here he is again.
I'm going to be using the tenderest cut of the Bantha, the loin. The loin is very tasty and serves 4 nicely.
All right, there you go.
Not enough laughing in that thing.
Yeah, we'll see Palofime if or Fine.
I feel like it's called Greg. You just read it wrong.
I feel like I need to ask my doctor if Palofine is right for me. Anyway, yeah, I'm all about this idea of let's do some new stuff. It can and Jedis can be part of that stuff, but it doesn't have to be Skywalkers. I think that's the middle part I'm willing to make. I understand their need to make these movies have iconic Star Wars things in them, and you cannot take Jedi out of Star Wars very easily. But you could go very, Dark Streets of Coruscant, Bounty Hunter, for all I care. Like I want to go,
maybe.
I want to go somewhere else.
The TV show different than the new trilogy too.
Yeah, that's true. And there's real opportunity there to go to new places.
I want the TV show to be smugglers. Yeah. And we're always visiting new planets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's high
I want it to be an alien version of Friends.
Yeah, even better, right? Somebody can say, I can't think of it.
They just go down and do death sticks at Central Perk.
Yep.
The Central Perk's just in the middle of the known
Good
universe.
Lord, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's in the middle of Coruscant.
Oh.
Now it's central both in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Look, Death Sticks took my dad, okay?
I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to make fun.
Those death sticks, you got to watch out. Anyway, there you go. It's all droids. Hey, that's what you do. All droid TV show. That's it.
I already did that.
And all voiced by Anthony Daniels because he just insists upon.
Oh, R2. Yeah, because he'll never die. He's with us forever.
Gungams.
Oh no, please. Please. We've gone too far. We've said too much. Anyway, there you go. Thank you for that email, pal of mine, / the other way we said it. If you want to send your own emails into the show, everybody listening, you sure can. currentgeek@gmail.com is the email address. We'll read them right here. Before we get out of here, a quick link
What
check with our
made me
guests.
think
Where
that
can
was the
people
right
find
thing
your
to
show / shows? And where do you want them to
Screw
poke
up
around
all
on
my
on
good
Twitter or
stuff.
wherever? Give us the names.
Here Movie Podcast, heremoviepodcast.com, The Film Find, and if you like the AMC show Preacher, preacherpodcast.com. We do that show as well.
Thanks for your input, pooping inside of my own mouth.
And on Twitter, people can find me at Chubby Wizard is the Twitter handle. Amazon.com/author/Bruce
very,
Leslie or
insightful.
ChubbyWizard.com. Just remember, Nerd Spawn, one word.
Nice. Nerd Spawn. Don't forget. Tom Merritt, anything you'd like to mention?
Well, as Bruce mentioned, I write the book, and you can buy the book at TomMerrittBooks.com. The latest one's called Bavaria. It's about a colony ship that's damaged, and a lot of people don't realize they're on a ship. And if you want the audio book, there will be one eventually. Right now, I'm recording it on my writer's Patreon, patreon.com/AceDetect.
Oh, very nice. So people can hear that as you progress. That's cool. Look at Tom working all the angles. This is great. Hey, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. If you'd like to find more of what I've got going, you can find me at Scott Johnson on Twitter. Of course, frogpants.com. And some cool stuff coming up. We hope you're having a fantastic lead into the holidays. There will be a show Friday, I think, right?
Not a week from today.
No, not because it's Black Friday. Duh.
We'll be both of us will be in line in Walmart together.
Yeah, yes, but it's also family apocalypse for the Americans. Everyone's gonna be busy, so no show next week. But we'll be back soon with more, including a new movie episode coming up. I know you guys have been enjoying those. Lots of great feedback on those, and thank you guys for that. I think that's gonna do it for us. Let's see. I have music to play. Here you go. Hey, this is our theme on the outro. Hey, currentgeek.com is the website. Current Geek on Twitter. Scott Johnson, Ace Detect. And don't forget that email address once again, currentgeek@gmail.com. That will do it for us, for me, for Tom, and for our guests. We'll see you next time. Well done, everyone.
You guys were great. That was so.
Recording. 0 frames dropped. I love it.
Nice.
Okay, here goes. It starts in, there we go. 3, 2, 1. Coming up on TMS PM, deeper into the Wendy's chili thing.
Another doth protested too much.
The Navy drew a wiener in the sky.
Kid causes bedlam in a mall Sephora.
Sephora, yeah.
Sephora.
Gene Simmons done got himself banned.
Listen, I know how to pronounce Spencer Gifts and Orange Julius.
Sure.
I don't know about no Sephora.
Yeah.
App time.
Your Twitter questions and more on this episode of TMS PM.
This is the morning stream, but it's not in the morning, it's at night. TMS PM.
Oh, I wouldn't say it's night, but it's, it's the afternoon. 1:30 in the afternoon. Hi, everybody.
PM
Welcome
here.
to PM. Yeah,
All that matters.
It's all that matters, folks. We're back. We're doing it. What a weird week I've had, but it ended with this huge storm I'm having right now. If you could see it, it's like sideways snow, just blowing hard.
We're getting that tomorrow.
Coming your way, is it?
Yeah,
Great.
they were expecting it today, and they were saying, "Oh, Friday's going to be the worst day of the week, and be like 48 degrees outside, so bundle up." And currently, I'm happy to say it's 61 degrees outside. I'm looking outside at my front porch cam, front lawn cam, and it's sunny.
Yep.
And there are a lot of cars in front of my house.
Well, last night was punctuated with it was very breezy, and you could tell a storm was looming, but it was warm, so it was like 69 degrees. It was great. But that's always a bad sign. That means there's some hideous storm coming, pushing through
the wind, the wind's picking up, and
and you just know it's coming. Well, today it came during the night. It's not quite sticking to roads, but it's sticking everywhere else, and it's blowing sideways. So good times. Anyway, Kim's almost home. She'll be home tomorrow night, late, like 11 o'clock at night. Which kind of bums me out because I'm probably gonna have to go to the airport, and who knows if it'll still be snowing. Who knows? But
she's got Lyft on her phone, right?
Sure, they could if they had to. I don't know. How do you feel about 11 o'clock p.m. Lyft? Does that weird you out at all? Like, you worried about the people that might be driving that late?
It would worry me a little bit if it was like Kim alone, right? Like she's gonna have her sister there, and it's two people in a lift. I don't know. I wouldn't have a problem with it myself. And I've taken many a late night, maybe even early morning lift in Las Vegas solo, and never had a problem with that.
Sure.
But,
well, in Vegas, I guess it's more expected, right? I could see that.
It's more expected, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think. People who are willing to do late night lifts are either the best people possible or the worst people possible. There's no in between. Anyway, so,
okay, this is funny, Iker, because I said if it was Kim alone, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Iker says, "Who's Kim Malone?"
Kim
well, that's
Malone.
kind of funny you asked that because that's the newly married name of my first very serious girlfriend.
Oh, she just got married all this time later?
No. She's her name is now Kim Malone, but I mean it has been for like the last 30 years or something.
Oh, but that was her. But this Kim girl.
That's
you
her
dated.
married name. So it's funny. He says, "Who's Kim Malone?" Well, I'll tell you. Not that it's not for nothing, but there you go. That's my information.
Brian's got stories. He could tell.
I have stories. I'll never tell.
Probably never going to hear those stories, but I would
never tell.
Anyway, we took the kids out last night for dinner. Now you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, Scott, an opportunity here, chance."
Oh, how was Carl's Jr.?
So it was everybody, Taylor and Dylan included. So because we have our normal Thursday thing, normally that's
right.
Kim at home making some rad meal. But I told everybody, I said, "Look, I'll take you some. Let me take you someplace nice. Let's go somewhere nice."
Right.
And they decided on this Mexican place that everybody likes, and I said that's fine. So we went there, and it was great. It was not a fast food place.
Man.
This was a preparatory restaurant-y place where they bring you out a nice hot plate full of things, and I went for the smothered burrito, and nobody told me it would be enough to feed a family of 12.
Well,
because,
yeah, those things.
Oh my gosh, dude! And I ate the whole freaking thing, and today I'm a bloated mess. So there's that.
Ever since the great Chipotle rising of 2008, burritos at Mexican restaurants feel like they have to be Zeppelins.
Yeah, they have to compete. I don't even know how they get them into standard sized tortillas. In fact, I'll bet tortillas have grown a little bit just to make it work. But anyway, there's that, and everything's fine. But just to give people an idea of how things are ending up here, Kim will be home. We'll be back to normal. We immediately, the very next morning, so Sunday morning, we have some family stuff, and then right after that, we go to a kind of early in the afternoon, early Thanksgiving with my side of the family, because a whole bunch of those people are going to be gone for the actual holiday.
Gotcha.
So big dinner-y thing at my sister's house, and then like a couple of days later, we're doing the exact same thing with Kim's side because they're doing the same thing this year.
Right.
But Thanksgiving Day, we're stoked because this is the first time, and probably ever, where it's just been me, Kim, Nick, Carter, Taylor, and Dylan. That's it.
Nice.
Everybody else is gone or doing a thing that conflicts or has other family. Or whatever. So no giant extended family, no kids gumming up my controllers, no weird shit. Just us having a good time and
good.
All that.
I mean, it's good, and it's it's a time for family anyway. So I mean, that's one thing. But if it's been a long time since you've actually had that kind of close family, let's get together and have it just be us kind of experience. I think that's awesome. I agree.
Totally and we'll get to see it. We still see everybody for the two early ones. It's fine. Right. So we'll still see them all. By the way, continued happy. I hope everyone's enjoying celebrating National Pervert Month. I hope everyone's having a good one.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah, it's going great so far. As I said in the tweet, it's only thrown me off because people were celebrating in October, and I wasn't used to that.
Right.
But here we are, all the perverts coming out, wieners in hand. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. So yesterday, the Wendy's food thing. Okay.
Right.
The chili
deal. Boy,
deal.
Wendy's. It unleashed a veritable meat storm of controversy.
It really did. I got more emails about the Wendy's chili meat thing than I've gotten for almost anything recently, especially in this year. I wish people were as passionate about actual issues as they are about the Wendy's chili meat. But
coming up next on Unfriend Me, Jerry and Scott delve deep into this Wendy's controversy for the final time.
Yeah, if you believe half a burger should be laying at the bottom of your chili, then unfriend me. Anyway, here's one from Adam who wrote in and says, and he's kind of defending it. He's saying, according to this whole Wendy's thing, I wanted to write in about your discussion of Wendy's over the last couple of days. I used to work for Wendy's around 1997 when I was in college, and I can still verify that the chili meat was taken from the burgers. However, I do not understand why you think this is bad. All restaurants, even five-star restaurants, reuse food to prevent food waste. This is common. Wendy's uses fresh grade A beef that is not frozen before being cooked. The meat is grilled, and there is extra meat that sits on the grill a little longer than on the standards. It is saved and frozen. This is then ground up and put into the chili the next day. There's nothing unsanitary about the practice, and again, it's eliminating waste. Otherwise, this perfectly good beef would be thrown away. He says usually it's just dry, and adding to the chili removes the issue anyway. Maybe I can understand your subconscious being grossed out by this, but if you think about it logically, it actually makes a lot of sense. So he is defending what's happening.
Sure.
He even uses Whataburger later is actually my favorite fast food burger. But I did want to give an argument for Wendy's. Also, Dave Thomas implemented the chili recipe. He was fully aware of the leftover burgers being used in it, so he wouldn't be rolling over in his grave, says Adam. All right.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, basically, it's not like they fall on the floor and say, "Oh, that goes in the chili." You know, it's like, all right, well, it's meat that's been cooked, and it's been cooked in its regular sanitary way, and it's just being saved and then put into the chili.
Yeah.
So now I did read ahead.
Oh, good.
Pre-show.
Good. You've heard what Brad thinks then.
I heard what Brad thinks, and I love how there are paragraphs that are kind of mirrored to Adam's paragraphs, but described in a completely different way. I love this point-counterpoint.
It's almost as if they heard the same rapper, but came away with two interpretations.
That's right.
All right, so Brad says, I am a first-time listener of the show. One of my coworkers texted me last night and said, you have to listen to this because I told my entire office that Wendy's food is generally fine, just avoid the chili at all costs. As I was listening, I decided I had to weigh in, so here's the story. I actually heard from him first on Twitter, and I said, hey, please email us. Also, great to have a new listener. I hope you continue to listen. That's
no
always
kidding.
nice. I love when controversy brings new people to the show. It's good.
Yes.
He says, here's the story. I was in high school and I needed a job to pay for the car I had. I had zero work experience, so I went into Wendy's and landed my first job as a grill operator. This qualifies me as an expert witness to the subject matter, smiley face. All right. It says, without going into crazy detail, as a grill operator, you always had meat on the grill ready to go, even if nobody was coming in. So the meat would theoretically always be fresh. The problem was with this that the burger became dried out from being on the grill too long, or as the rap training video indicated, if it became ratty.
Right. I think the video says ratty with a T, like because it rhymes with patty.
Oh.
I've never heard the term ratty with D's, like ratty, like
R-A-D-D-Y. You're right. I don't know what that is.
But anyway, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that. Anyway, it says it went into a meat drawer above the grill. Yes, a meat drawer. There it stayed for several hours as the containers in the drawer filled up with dry or ratty meat. At the end of the night, the meat was removed from the meat drawer, plastic wrap, dated, and put into a walk-in freezer. From there, whenever chili was needed, we need chili.
Chili is needed.
Chili is needed.
More chili pylons are needed.
Stop all you're doing and make more Vespine gas is required. The meat would be removed from the freezer, oldest first, put into a giant pot, then boiled for hours. He then separates the word hours again with a period. He said, then some poor guy would remove the water, but put the heavily boiled meat into a container and use 2 grill spatulas to chop the shit out of the meat. This is his words. Our designated chili guy took his job very seriously. He would not have allowed the meat to be in giant chunks as you experienced in your chili. Once that meat was ready, it was sometimes refrozen or immediately put into a new batch of chili. Making the chili is still...
I'm glad their designated chili guy was so hip to the QA. Like, he wanted to make sure quality assurance happened on that meat.
Yeah, part of me not knowing the policy was always, after learning this, was they're not thorough to make sure that they do a good job. They're thorough so that you don't think a burger's in there.
Right, so it doesn't look like, well, that's easy. That's clearly a corner.
Right, exactly.
It's like figuring out your jigsaw puzzle piece. Well, that's a corner right there.
He says he would never allow that. Once the meat was ready, it was sometimes refrozen and put in a new batch of chili. Okay, making the chili is still nightmarish to me, and there is a giant cans of chili base that you would add to the meat and then water to make the chili. The chili base smells like vomit. I'm not exaggerating. The mixture of that stuff then simmers for another few hours and then is put into 2 vats for serving. He says, I remember all of this 13 years later because as a teenager in 2004, it marked me. I tell everyone to avoid chili at Wendy's. Some people have told me they were not fazed and stated their chili is great. Those people are not human. That said, most people, or most everything we had at Wendy's, I would eat and still eat to this day. I know that I know where the stale dry meat goes, so a burger is still a good choice there. Like you covered, go to Wendy's for the burger type sandwiches and chicken. The salads aren't great, but are prepared fresh each morning and discarded at the end of the shift, so they are not used the next day. Hope this adds some context for you. All right. Yeah, like, I'll say this. I didn't hate the chili I ate until I found the giant slab of meat in it.
Right.
That's where my disconnect comes from. It isn't so much. Maybe my complaint isn't the meat where it comes from, or that it helps with waste or anything. Mm-hmm. It's that somebody just didn't care and threw a giant half a burger in there and didn't.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's not that you feel like, oh, this meat's unsanitary or this is lower grade meat or anything like that. It's basically the same meat that you would have had in your burger. And let's say you guys had a barbecue at your house for lunch, and then Kim was planning on making chili the next day. You said, well, we've got these 2 extra burgers. Let's just chop up the meat and put that in the chili.
Absolutely.
You totally would have no issue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Zero issue with that. So I guess I don't have a problem with the policy. I don't even have a problem with the chili so much as it's just, I'm with Brian, I guess. Chili at Wendy's is weird. Tacos or burgers at Del Taco is weird. The burger thing they made for a while at Taco Bell is weird.
The Bell Beefer.
Yeah, like
it's like the name does not even do it any justice.
I believe in these things more when it's like KFC is the store, but also part of the store is a A&W because they own each other now.
Right.
Or Green Burrito and Carl's Jr. They're often in the same exact building. That feels better to me somehow. It's probably a very small differentiator, but to me that's like, okay, well, at least you have some separation. I will never buy a burger from Burger King or from KFC ever.
Sure. Yeah, why would you?
Yeah.
I'm really curious actually, because we've even got the triple hybrid, the Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC restaurants out
really?
here. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, I mean it's fine. Usually when I go there, it's just to the Taco Bell. It's just for ordering off the Taco Bell menu. But I wonder if those places, because they're all from the same, whatever they are now. I know it used to be PepsiCo Foods. Yeah. But I can't remember what they are.
Yeah, they sold off to somebody else now. But yeah.
Right, and I wonder if everything comes together. I mean, I bet it really can't, because your pepperoni is only going to be used for the Pizza Hut side. The chicken is only going to be used for the KFC side, and the other chicken you get is going to be in these little nuggets that are used for the Taco Bell side. It's not like
you'd hope anyway.
And even if you didn't hope, it's what else are you going to do with it, right? I mean, it's like if that's not the case, the only alternative is that they're getting chicken and chopping it up for the Taco Bell side and using the whole pieces for the KFC side. That doesn't sound bad.
No.
That sounds fine.
Maybe they're running the leftover pepperoni up to the Wendy's up the street so they can make more chili when they're out of beef.
Maybe. But it does seem like there's no reason that they'd get their materials together. I mean, even stuff like shredded cheese for Taco Bell, I don't think there's anything.
No, not in those other two.
They don't use the cheddar for Pizza Hut. That's all mozzarella, and they don't use any shredded cheese for KFC.
I completely agree. I think there is a, whether it's an invisible or actual physical wall, none of the ingredients of that 3 for restaurant are crossing. And if they do, then you worry. You're like, why is there a piece of pepperoni stuck to the side of my chicken leg? Like that kind of thing. Like maybe then you got some trouble, but I'll never go to KFC again. You know why, though? I've told you why.
Let's see. It wasn't the dirt clod in the salad.
Nope. It was that was Carl's Jr. Why I don't go there.
Jr., right.
I almost never got into a Wendy's again because that time I found a foot mark in my burger, like a shoe.
Right.
A shoe.
No, I don't remember the KFC.
The KFC controversy is my friend.
It wasn't a fucking foot mark.
Mark, if you're listening, my buddy Mark knows this.
Okay, yes, I remember now.
The guy put an uncooked piece of chicken leg up his bum and then put it in the fryer and served it. And decided, well, if that's the thing that can happen without any security, I'm never eating there again. Sorry, Colonel. Yeah. Just no finger looking good there. I can tell you that.
I guess the obvious thing for me to bring up is that could happen anywhere.
I know.
Like seriously, a tortilla could be tightly rolled, shoved up somebody's keister, and then thrown into the deep fat fryer for your taco.
Right, and I worked at that Chili's where I watched the guy throw.
Okay, let us call that a day.
Rubbed it on the floor and then spat on it and then cooked it. So I mean, this stuff does happen. I feel like maybe it happens less. I think people are maybe a little more hardcore about
call that a day.
Quality control.
Stream.
I don't know. It's just easier to get busted these days.
Yeah.
But it's made it very hard for me to go to a Kentucky Fried Chicken and not think about it.
All right, Ambassador Joss, I think has
You
the
have
message
been
of the day.
listening to the morning
I would really like to
stream.
know.
with
You've
Brian
got a high
Davis
res, Big H,
and,
Habit Burger, Cheddar Burger, Proper Burger, In-N-Out, and Five Guys.
Johnson on
Why
my
the hell would you go to McDonald's?
stream
Because
here.
sometimes I like McDonald's. and by the way,
Wonder.
McDonald's is rated as one of the best in terms of quality control. Now you may say the baseline of quality isn't the best thing, or it all tastes the same, or whatever, but they're really good about making sure that they're up to standards.
Right.